Welcome back to Royals Weekly. I am your host, Marcus Meade, and joining me as always, even Nicolas Cage thinks he should bring it down a notch. My brother, Mike.
So I've never had anybody accuse me of being at a Cage level of intensity. They usually say, "Hey, Mike, are you awake?" Like that's right.
No. Bring it down. Bring it down.
Like,
okay.
Mike, I just told you there was a horrible car accident. Many people lost their lives. And I'm like, huh? What?
Bring it down. Try and limit yourself to 2 8-balls a day. Come on, bring it down.
I don't even know what an 8-ball was.
We're getting off the rails early in this episode. We're getting way out of there. You know, why not? Let's do it. On this week's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about what was a losing West Coast road trip for the Royals, and then we're going to focus our spotlight segment on the farm system and how it may rank among other farm systems as those sort of things are coming out at this moment. Talk a little bit about if the Royals have some help on the way here before too long, and then of course we'll preview this week's games as the Royals have a full slate of games here at home. If you'd like to get more of this Royals Weekly content, more of this fun back and forth banter, go ahead and subscribe to that Royals Weekly Substack, royalsweekly.substack.com. It's only $5 a month. That's what is that a day, Mike? Give me some quick math.
I can't do that math.
It's like a nickel a day. It's not a big deal at all. $5 a month, but you get 2 extra ad-free episodes every week. You get an article from me. You get a midweek episode from Mike and I together, and then he does a solo episode on Friday. I'm liking those a lot more. Mike, what'd you do in your solo episode this last Friday?
We took a look at possible free agent moves that the Royals could make in the offseason, kind of what type of players they might be looking for. And then we went into some specifics on specific profiles, but also specific players who fit that profile. So, and then I went off the rails and was like, this guy doesn't fit the profile, but he would be fun to have anyway. And so we just took some looks at what it should look like in free agency this offseason.
Yes, I enjoy listening to those because I had nothing to do with making them. And so that's fun for me. It's like I'm listening to a whole different podcast I'm not a part of. I did disagree with so many of the ones that you chose and for free agent acquisition targets, but that's why it's fun to listen to, right? So go ahead and listen to those sorts of things. And maybe someday Mike and I will we have plenty of off season to argue about who they should sign. So so we'll do some of that. Also, make sure you're out there and rating and reviewing us everywhere you can. Give us some Apple Podcast reviews. We'll read them right here on the episode. We do that with all the Apple Podcast review, or just like leave us a little review under YouTube videos, like a YouTube comment or something. Whatever you're doing to get engaged, we love seeing that. Give us those 5 stars. Give us that thumbs up. That really helps us out a ton. We really appreciate it. So go out there and do that to the best of your ability. Let's kick off the review of last week with roster news. There wasn't a bunch of it, but we will we'll talk about the one bit of roster news that may have an implication. What's interesting about this transaction is it may end up meaning nothing. Mike, the Royals signed right-handed pitcher Tony Gonslin to an MLB deal, a major league deal, not a minor league deal, and immediately placed him on the 15-day injured list to continue rehabbing. He's working his way back from being out for a long time. I want to say is it shoulder or elbow surgery? I can't even remember, but he's been out a long time. Had some very good years, all-star years for the Dodgers back in the day. 32-year-old pitcher. What are your thoughts on the Royals grabbing a guy who maybe needs a bounce back of his own, needs a second chance, a third chance, and may provide some innings for them here in a few weeks because he is rehabbing, like doing pitching and stuff right now. It's not like he's not pitching. He should be back fairly soon.
What I wrote down was sigh, shrug, fart, whatever. Like, whatever, man. Like, cool. Like, keep running them through as many guys as you can. Keep just running them in, running them out. Okay. They can pitch. They can't pitch. We got Dobnak that way. All right. I like what I've seen from Nate Pearson, despite the fact that he did give up a winning run this week. Like, I like if you end up getting 2 or 3 guys out of this long rotation of cast-offs that you've brought in and given essentially tryouts to, great. 2 or 3 guys to move into next year when you have so many holes to fill, especially in that bullpen and honestly in the starting rotation for next year. I think that's a plus. That's smart. That's the way to do it. And if you're getting them on cheap deals, you'll feel even better about that. So yeah, this is what teams that are in the Royals position have to do.
Yeah, they need arms. They need arms just to finish out the season, honestly. I'm not sure what Gonslin's contract situation is beyond this year. I'm not sure if they'll have control because you need 6 years of service time to hit free agency. He doesn't have 6 yet. He has like 5.1. He won't get to 6 even if he pitches the rest of the year for the Royals. And so I don't know if he'll be a free agent. I'm guessing he'll be in his last year of arbitration next year.
And that number won't be 100%
sure.
So,
I mean, it won't be small because he's got a bunch of time and he has been successful in the past. And so it won't be tiny.
Like, he's been so hurt.
I'm just saying, I know, but like, we'll see. What I'm saying is we'll see. There's just a lot of unknown in my mind about like where he'd come at in arbitration, whether or not he'll be here next year. If that's in fact the case that he would be here for arbitration, I'm not sure. But they need arms. They need arms just to finish out this season. He needs a chance to show that he's still got it or that he's capable of bouncing back from the surgery. And so it's sort of a win-win for both of these parties here. Hopefully they can find some sort of role for him and he can be a part of this season and hopefully next year. It'd be great if it could be in the rotation. If it's not in the rotation, maybe it's in the bullpen. Whatever he can do to help them get outs, they need every ounce of that pitching they can get because as we've mentioned, they are so decimated in the rotation and the bullpen and they're running out there guys who are just, I mean, no. I'm just going to shake my head for those of you can't think, no. No. And so if Gonslin gives him a chance, great. If he's here for next year, great. We'll see how that ends up turning out. But yeah, as many guys as you can get through this tryouts in the bullpen and in the rotation, it's time to see them all. On the field last week, the Royals played fairly well, I thought, but the bullpen had designs on a rough week. They didn't want things to go well.
They were convicted.
They were. And when they're convicted, the quote coming out of Noah Cameron's post-game interview today is pitching is 90% confidence and 10% skill. Somehow the bullpen's still lacking in that 10%. Maybe in the 92, but that 10%, they're not making it. And so, yeah, they blew leads in the first two games of that Dodger series, if I'll take you back to the beginning of the week, ensuring a losing week in which they went 2-4 to bring their overall record to 51-74. They did manage to win that Angel series, taking the first and third games. Mike, what are your thoughts on how the Royals played last week?
Yeah, that was, I agree. I didn't hate how they played. When you look back at this week, and I'll get more to it with our theme, but it's kind of like this was the Royals that you kind of thought they would be at the beginning of the year, where they compete in a way that is competent starting pitching, enough offense, and then hopefully your bullpen's good enough. Now, the bullpen still wasn't good enough, or else they have a winning week. If that third part of it is there. If the bullpen
isn't garbage, they're 4-2, not 2-4 this week.
Exactly. Well, maybe even better because, I mean, they lose that Angels game. The game they lost in the Angels series was because of the bullpen too. And
no, I'm gonna blame that on the the bullpen gave up
that's
one
true.
run.
Reed Detmers was very good in that game.
He was very good, but you can't scratch. You can't scratch a couple runs off Reed Detmers. Get out of my face. Get out of my face with that.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think that was when you look back, you go, okay, that's kind of the vision of what we thought was going to be this Royals team all year long. Super competitive against one of the best teams in baseball, and they went out and they beat a team that you thought that you think they should beat in the Angels. And so I think that's kind of inspiring in some ways, especially how they competed in the Dodgers series with Jack Caglione being such a big part and Bobby being such a big part. And then watching Noah Cameron today gives you some hope as well. So there was some hope in a week that was a losing week.
Yeah, I didn't hate the play. I thought on the field they looked quite good. We saw some excellent defensive play, especially today. Michael Massey made a play that was really, really good. We saw some good double plays turned earlier in the week, especially in that Dodger series.
Tyler Tolbert had
an amazing play in center yesterday. We saw some good defense. We saw some good base running at times. I thought there was Jack Caglione's ripping bags like on the sly all the time. And so that was decent. We saw some good things. I saw some good plate appearances that I thought were really good. But when it comes down to it, when you're in these tight games with good teams like the Dodgers and your bullpen is as bad as it is, I don't think people really realize how bad it is. I saw I was just flipping through the old Instagram Reels machine earlier, and most of my feed it's the Royals weekly feed. So a lot of it's baseball.
Women is what most of your feed is.
Well, it's a lot of baseball stuff in there too, though. And so
baseball women.
Half closed baseball players. And so I flipped through and somebody's doing like a ranking of the 5 worst bullpens in baseball. The Royals were ranked the worst, right?
The Royals were all 5 of them.
Yeah, they should have been. I'm telling you, you look at the numbers that this person's throwing out and they are insanely bad. They are so bad. And I don't think people really fathom that yes, they're 51-74. so much of that is bad bullpen play. They're not great anywhere else either. I mean, the rotation hasn't been good. The offense has only been maybe not even average, below average, right, for the whole season. But that bullpen has been an absolute lead weight around the entire team, and it continues to be so. Mike, there were some people who did have decent weeks this last week. Who was your strong performer?
It was tough because there were some guys, but I went with Jack Caglione because I think offensively it kind of hinges on him,
right now
when he's going good, Yeah. Especially since you're not getting a whole lot from Carter Jensen right now. You're not getting a whole lot from Salvador Perez and having all year. Vinny Pasquantino.
Bobby's doing okay, but he's not doing superhuman Bobby. So.
Yeah, exactly. A good home run today. But 9 for 22 this past week for Jack Caglione, 5 runs, 2 home runs. Here's the big one, 9 RBI from Jack Caglione. And a lot of those were like, hey, down 2 strikes in the count, figure out a way to get a single when there's guys on base. 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. And as you mentioned, those 2 stolen bases, when Jack is going to be, if he can be a consistent guy like that, I'm not saying he's going to continue to do that all the time, but consistency is going to be the key for Jack Caglione. If Jack Caglione is going to be our 3 hitter, it's going to be all about how consistent he can be. It will determine how effective this offense can be, the ceiling for this offense.
Yeah, and really, he is so crucial to that right now and will be moving forward. I think moving forward, they're hoping that Carter Jensen does some development. They're hoping that they can work out how to deal with declining Salvador Perez or what to do with Vinny Pasquantino and Michael Garcia comes back and things like that. They're hoping for all these things, and that's great. But none of that is really going to be the thing that drives them forward offensively unless Jack Caglione is a rock in the center of the lineup, right? And rocks are consistent, right? Like that's what you need. You need that level of consistency to be like, okay, I'm putting the ball in play. I like the 2 walks this week is what really get me is like, he needs to be, the base on balls is going to be so important for him moving forward because teams are going to start being really cautious pitching to him. He has to be willing to take his walks, go to first base and not get himself out. That's the big difficulty for him.
And I think that's where maybe Michael Garcia actually helps out Jack Caglione if he comes back and starts hitting 4th. Because the one thing about Michael is the approach isn't necessarily one that's gonna get a really high walk percentage, but it's enough where you're gonna say, hey, that guy behind him can really control a strike zone, can really make a hitter or a pitcher come to him. Let's try and make sure we're getting Jack Caglione out and not putting him on base because Bobby's going to be on base. We know that, right? We know Bobby's going to be doing the things he needs to do. You don't want to have to pitch to Michael Garcia, who, even when the Royals have been going through massive slumps of not being able to hit with guys on base, he's been the one guy who's been kind of okay at it. And so I'm interested to see him in the 4 spot and that run of Bobby, Jack, Michael.
And people underestimate the degree to which it's not just the guy hitting behind you who protects you. It's also the guy hitting in front of you, because what they don't want to do is put 2 guys on base ahead of Michael Garcia. They don't want Bobby getting second base for free on a walk to Jack Caglione. They don't want moving a guy into scoring position who's almost certainly going to score on a single in Bobby Witt Jr. and stuff like that. They really don't want. And so I think that makes some sense. Is Garcia the ideal 4 hitter? No, ideally your 4 hitter would have more power than Michael Garcia has, but he's not. You certainly could do worse, I think. My strong performer for this week is one Noah Cameron, and Joetown's finest. I think he's been our strong performer for a couple of weeks in the last month or so, because man, he was. If you didn't see his start today, go back out there and watch that start. He was absolutely dominant today. He went out there, complete game shutout, 1 hitter, 1 walk, 10 strikeouts. For the week, he started 2 games this week. Yeah. He went what?
I think it was 8 strikeouts.
No, it was 10. No, you're right. It was 8. You're right. Okay. Or no, this is for the week. Sorry. For the week, he had 10 strikeouts. In this game, he had 8. Let me give you his line for the week. 2 games started, 14 2/3 innings pitched, 4 earned runs, though 2 of those should really be given to John Schreiber, who couldn't get 1 freaking out for him. 7 hits, 3 walks, 10 strikeouts. We saw today what it looks like when Noah Cameron is on his game and, confusing hitters up, down, in, out. It was vintage Noah Cameron, because a lot of it started out anyway with being weak contact. Guys just could not, they were getting fly balls, but they were very weak contact fly balls, no threat to leave the ballpark. his changeup, he threw a ton of them today, and they were deadly. Got Mike Trout on a really good one, located really well, and that's what's the difference. I mean, you and I have talked about this numerous times, but the difference since he started calling his own pitches, it's not just that the pitch mix has changed; it's that the command with those pitches has gotten better, so much better. And I assume that's because of conviction. He mentioned it in his post-game interview. He has a ton of confidence in what he's throwing right now because he's the one calling those pitches. Guarantee he's never going to be the one. He's never going to let somebody else call the pitches moving forward. And so great to see. It gives you hope that he could be something more than that back end starter we sort of pegged him as. Maybe he's something more than that. Maybe he's a John Lester type mid-rotation starter or something like that. I think that would be a very interesting thing to consider as the Royals look anywhere they can find for pitching help. Mike, on the other end of the spectrum, guys who are not Joe Town's finest, what did you see? Who did you see as your weak performer this week?
Guys whose homestowners like, hey, he ain't from here. He actually grew up over here. So I gotta put it out there because I'm a man of accountability. Okay, my boy Isaac Collins struggling, and it's not just this week. It's been a stretch. 1 for 19 for Isaac Collins this week. 0 runs, 1 double, 0 RBI, 1 walk to 6 strikeouts. I don't know what it is for Isaac Collins right now. He's not, the approach isn't quite as good. He's swinging at stuff that's up in the zone more than I would want him to swing at stuff up in the zone. I think he needs like a stretch of he needs a day off when they have an off day the next day too, for Isaac Collins. And yeah, hopefully that changes. You know, we've talked about what his floor kind of is. And I don't know if the way he's playing now doesn't give me a lot of confidence that there's more room for a ceiling for Isaac Collins.
Yeah, that's tough because I kind of had hopes that maybe there was more for him in terms of like a ceiling, but it's not showing. And it's kind of showing that he's not going to impact the ball hard enough to really reach any sort of more ceiling to that, which I think is rough. Here's the thing about Collins lately during this stretch. They love throwing him high fastballs. He cannot touch them. He loves swinging at them.
He'll miss them.
He'll miss them every time, and he keeps swinging at them. And that's just, he's going to have to figure out something to do with that pitch because they're going to keep going back to it. And so, you know, we'll see how that ends up going. I mean, there are guys who can get by being like, fine, throw me the high fastball. I'm going to lay off it unless I have 2 strikes. And then when you make a mistake, I'm going to pound that mistake. But he's not in that mind right now. He's just swinging at all those. My weak performer for last week is a guy who I have a little bit of faith in, at least as maybe a 4th outfield type, but he had a real struggle this last week. This is John Rave, who went 0 for 13. He did not get a single hit this last week, 0 walks and 5 strikeouts. Obviously, he had 0 extra base hits because he didn't have any hits. And so it was a rough week for John Rave offensively. We'll see. I think he deserves the rest of the season because, you know, what the hell, you know, give him a tryout for the rest of the season, see if he can bounce back, see if he can start hitting again. But we did see him make one really good play in the outfield, threw a guy out at home in the, I believe, Angels series. But not a great week for John Rave. Hopefully he ends up bouncing back. If not, it's not something to worry about, but he needs to be given a shot to see what he's got as a maybe potential platoon outfielder. Mike, I think you and I both went with excellent lyrics from excellent bands for our themes this week. What'd you got for a theme?
Oh, I went with the fantastic, I guess you could call them a jam band, right? No, you don't think of them as a jam band.
They don't do intricate solos like jam bands.
They play with other jam bands. I know that.
Oh, yeah. They got the hippie aesthetic of a jam band.
The band is called Guster. They got their start in the 90s, but I think maybe had their heyday in the early 2000s. The song is called Homecoming King. And the part that I chose meant to describe somebody who is already past their best days, but it doesn't quite know that yet, maybe. It's stay right where you are. You'll be half of who you were when you always would win. So count the days till you give in. Okay. And that's kind of what we're doing now. We're now counting the days until the Royals essentially, say, hey, we're done. Let's, my wife actually asked me today, when's the Royals season going to be over? And I'm like, oh, well, it's not actually that far away. It's a month and a half and it'll be done. So, but I did get hope from this week. And that was kind of what the quote was about too, was like the hope that I saw this week from some of the decent play doesn't measure up to what the record does.
Right. That makes perfect sense. And if you've heard that song, it's sort of about somebody who also kind of longs for their glory days. Yeah. And it's wonderful. So it fits this week well, because it also sort of reminds you, hey, the Royals aren't so far removed from some glory days of winning a World Series. But hopefully they'll get back there soon. I went with a song, it's sort of a similar theme about like the season setting, the sun setting on the season as we're sort of moving into the final 6 weeks, and we're about to, shed the MLB regular season, move on into football. Maybe it's because football preseason started this last week. And so I'm like, okay, people's minds are shifting and all sorts of stuff. This is from the excellent band Death Cab for Cutie, their absolute banger of an album, Plans. If you haven't heard it, every single song kicks ass. This was from a song called Summer Skin. I don't recall a single care, just greenery and humid air. Then Labor Day came and went, and we shed what was left of our summer skin. It reminds me of the fact that we're starting to transition into that period of summer where the Royals are going to be, the sun will be setting on the Royals season before too long. And you're seeing on the field, I think, some guys maybe getting into a mind that is like, we're moving on at times. So I'm just throwing that out there. I watched a minor league game today where I saw a guy not at all try to run back to a base, and he got doubled off very easily. It was a wild thing to watch. But yeah, that's where we might be as we move into late August, early September. Mike, what household chores do you refuse to do yourself?
Window cleaning, pressure washing, and most importantly, gutter cleaning.
And why is that?
Getting me up a ladder is a whole ballet of violence and pain and a little bit of accidental nudity.
If you're wise like Mike, reach out to the professionals at Window Wolf for all your window cleaning, gutter cleaning, and pressure washing needs. Window Wolf is a locally operated small business with all the professional know-how to keep your feet on the ground and your house or business shining bright. I've known the owner of Window Wolf for years, and I can tell you there's no one more reliable for high-quality service. Plus, Window Wolf is revolutionizing home maintenance with their new instant price calculator, which gives you a free quote without a home visit or entering a bunch of your personal information. Window Wolf is making the process easy and the price affordable. And for a limited time only, you can get 50% off when you book using their instant price calculator. Just visit windowwolf.com, that's windowwolf.com, and use the code ROYALS50, that's ROYALS50, no spaces, when using that instant price calculator, and save big bucks on quality service.
Nothing I like more than a job done right by someone else.
Yeah, I'm not doing it myself. That seems like work. Be smart. Let the pack handle your pains with Window Wolf. We spend a lot of time focused on the Royals and what they might do this offseason, and rightfully so. We're all hoping for better performance next year, but I'd like to spend our spotlight segment today focused on the team's farm system. Very recently, Baseball America came out with its farm system rankings. They had the Royals ranked 27th out of 30 teams. Now, MLB Pipeline came out with theirs today. They had them ranked 19th, so a little bit better, but not high echelon of teams there. I found the 27th rank from Baseball America puzzling. The long-term health of this team is rooted entirely in its farm system, and I think that system has been getting better for at least 3 or 4 years. But Baseball America seemingly doesn't agree, though they do rank 3 Royals prospects in their top 55 overall prospects. Mike, how do you feel about the system right now? Are you in line with that Baseball America view that they are nearly the worst farm system in baseball?
Okay, so let's start here. I'm always like lower on the farm system than you are. Like that's just how it's always been. I've always been extremely skeptical, all that stuff. This is still kind of crazy to me. Just math wise, it doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me. The only rationale, because you and I talked about this on Thursday, just with amongst each other. And after you and I talked, I started thinking, well, the only kind of rationale that I could see for this is maybe Baseball America is dinging them because most of their top guys, honestly, most of the guys you're excited about, most of their highly ranked guys are in high A or lower. You know, they do not have much as far as like premium talent in AA or AAA. And so maybe that knocks down a bunch of their overall ranking. I don't know. But you got 3 guys in the top 55, and I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, none of those guys are Blake Mitchell.
No.
David Shields wasn't in that group even, was he?
No, he was not.
Yeah.
That's Josh Hammond,
Hammond,
Gomez,
Churio,
and Kendry
and Gomez. Yeah. And so that's 2 guys right there that are fantastic prospects. Throw on top of that Carson Roccaforte. You've got some depth in there too that we'll talk about here in a second. Yeah, Lampkin. Yeah, I mean, there's just, and that doesn't even count the guys they drafted this year. And it's like, so like I'm just really confused on how I see it as the top end has gotten better for this organization as far as prospects go, and the depth has gotten better. So that's puzzling to me. And they brought in the kid for the Lane Thomas trade, who I always forget his name. That's starting pitching depth right
Lucas
there.
Braun.
Lucas Braun. I don't understand how that could be the case unless they're just saying, well, they don't got much in AA or AAA. That's true. I get that. But other than that, it makes no sense to me that you would be 27th. That's insane.
Yeah, that's why it's interesting. I could like the baseball or the MLB pipeline ranking of 19. I could see that in terms of like, and for me, the lowest floor of where they would be. I could see somewhere between anywhere from 12 to 19. To me, it makes sense for where the Royals farm system should be ranked. 27th seems crazy to me, just crazy, in part because, well, one, you mentioned all the things you said, like the high end talent has gotten significantly better. Anibal Gomez, there are some people who think he might be the number 1 prospect in baseball in the next 2 or so years, right? Like, so that's a possibility, right? But the depth has gotten remarkably better. I mean, you mentioned all those names. You didn't mention Zion Rose or Taylor Rabe, who they took in the first round this last year, right? Like, you didn't
Michael
mention
Lombardi.
Sean Gamble, who, despite the fact that he struggled earlier, has played much better in the last 2 months and looks like worthy of the first round selection they took him. Like there are a lot of dudes who look like they have, and yes, you're right, their high-end prospects aren't in AA or AAA, but it's not like they have 0 at AA or AAA. They have Lucas Braun. They have Carson Roccaforte. They have a couple other guys in the AA, especially team, who look like they could at least be role players or pieces at the major league level. So I don't really understand 27th as a ranking. If you want to ding them for not having a lot in the high minors, I get it, but I don't think you drop them all the way to 27th for that. That seems crazy to me because, like you mentioned, there is a lot of high-end talent in this farm system, and I'm talking like, especially on the pitching side, guys who, yeah, they're not in that top 55, top 100, but they might be mid-rotation starters or better. David Shields, Justin Lampkin, they look really good. Taylor Rabe, like keep naming them. I mean, they're out there.
Lombardi,
top to bottom. Lombardi that has looked great, right? Like, and so it's odd to me that they would be like, oh, I mean, how good are the next 26 teams? If the Royals farm system is down here, these other 26 must be incredible, like just incredible. Like it makes no sense to me. Mike, to some degree, they did have a little blurb with it. Baseball America's argument is that the system doesn't have that top end talent. Talk a little bit about that depth. Do you seem to see that depth? Does it seem right to you that they don't have depth?
Well, no, it doesn't. I don't think depth is the issue. Like I mentioned, I think if there's any issue, it's that they probably didn't like that most of the guys that are in the Royals top 30 are at high A or lower, and so I see this as one that has solid depth. I wouldn't call it fantastic, but I think it's really solid depth. I think there's still a lot of guys too. And another thing, there's a perception, and I think it's like an accurate perception, that the Royals have made some moves in the last decade that were big swings and misses. And I think sometimes that narrative in the general consciousness or in the head of these evaluators knocks these rankings down a little bit, but their depth to me seems pretty good, definitely better than what it was. Especially when you consider the pitching stuff. I think, I don't think depth is something you can really ding them on when you have all those different guys that we've talked about. And we didn't even get into Ramon Ramirez. I mean, their catching depth is the best, probably the best of any organization in baseball.
I mean, unless you're digging, I mean, if you're not high on Blake Mitchell, then maybe you don't think so. But their depth in the catching is incredible, and so it's
I still like what's his name? He's at I think AAA now. Oh, I'm
yeah, he's probably Luca Tresh.
Yes, thank you. Mm-hmm.
He's probably I think Luca Tresh could be a backup major league catcher right now, probably. Like,
and so I don't get it. And we know the pitching depth is there. Like we know that's there. Okay, talking position player depth. Maybe it's not great in the outfield, but you've got. I mean, you've got a high end in the outfield because you got Gomez in the outfield. You've got some depth in the infield, and so I just don't get it. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me that that they would ding them for depth, because to me that's kind of one of the strengths of this organization. I look at infield depth from guys like that guy was just taken. Oh, that's Yandel Ricardo, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy that's not in the top 100, I don't think, but here's another thing. Jack Slidham. Like there's nothing more pitching depth there that we just took. Like so many guys here that I think you look at and you go, man, that could be a real, and the Suarez kid, Yedier Suarez.
He's another one who is really just getting overshadowed by Angel Gomez. But if Gomez wasn't there, people would be talking about Suarez as like maybe the best DSL prospect this last season. Like they might have the top two, honestly, DSL prospects coming out. And so, it's one of those things that is remarkable. And depth wise, you just start naming these names. And what's interesting is you go back to the Royals system of 2 years ago, and when Yandel Ricardo was like top 3, now he's like 11th on MLB Pipeline, right? When a guy like, if you go 3 or 4 years ago, a guy like Carson Rocafort might have been top 5. He's not going to be in the top 15 for Pipeline or for Baseball America. I think that's too low. But what this is showing is that the farm system itself, especially the depth, has gotten so much better in terms of both their floor and their ceiling. Like some of these guys still have legitimate ceiling. Asbel Gonzalez, we've seen what he's done. Definitely has the floor of legit defender, probably 70 or 80 grade speed, stolen base threat, all this sort of stuff. He's got that sort of Tyler Tolbert floor. If he ever finds the strength to impact the ball significantly, he's got a significant ceiling, right? Like there are just a lot of guys like that in this system. Same with Ricardo, where it's like, good profile, good physicality. If he ever finds it, could be really, really good. If not, maybe he's just like also ran middle infielder. That's fine too, right? Like they have a lot of those type of guys, and I don't think they're getting the credit for the fact that because a lot of them are still in high A, low A type stuff. I think they're not getting a lot of the credit that they maybe deserve. Mike, how would you describe, since we're talking about like a comparison of the farm system they have now versus the farm system they have a couple of years ago, how would you describe the evolution of this farm system over the last few years?
Yeah, so to me, and I kind of wrote this down, 3 things stand out and I rank them. I think they are ranked most important to least important. But number 1 is the success that they've had in Latin America. And you mentioned the guys there. Henry Churro, Anibal Gomez, Yandel Ricardo,
Yadier Suarez,
Ramon Ramirez,
Warren Calcano.
Yeah, all those guys. I mean, the success they've had in Latin America, Felix Arande, the success that they've had in Latin America has changed this farm system. And, a lot of it is in areas that they have had success in the past. In Venezuela, they have done really well. And obviously we have 2 players on our current major league roster that have been very important to the organization from Venezuela. So, and Freddie Fermin was from Venezuela as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, also from Venezuela.
And so just a lot of Latin American impact there. So success in Latin America has been huge for them. Then we've talked on this podcast many times about the pitching development system and its changes and the impact that it's had. That's why guys like David Shields and Kendry Churio and Justin Lampkin, Lampkin was not an afterthought in the draft. I mean, he was somewhat highly thought of, but he was not a first round pick. So seeing some of those guys come in and improve like we've seen David Shields, Kendry Churio, and Lampkin. That's been really big for this organization. And then the third thing for me is the burgeoning hitting development. We've seen Carson Roccaforte make changes and excel because of them. We've seen Blake Mitchell seemingly make some changes and improve because of those. Sean Gamble as well, Josh Hammond. Those guys seem to be developing as hitters better than what we've seen in the past. Now, does that mean we're going to save guys like Gavin Cross? Maybe not, but take those guys that are coming in now and really get them to work on approach early and establish a good approach. And I think we're well on our way to having a solid hitting development system as well.
Yeah, I think that's those three categories you sort of laid out there are a great way of thinking about why the farm system looks different today than it did 3 or 4 years ago. I'll add that there seems to be this concerted effort to get more depth into this system. So you see things like the strategy, the underslot strategy they took this last year, that just adds additional depth to the system, because instead of taking a guy in the 3rd or 4th round who is basically just going to be organizational depth, isn't going to be able to do anything for you, you're able to spend a little bit more money on that guy and get a Camden Johnson, or get a Dominic Batista, or get somebody who actually has a little bit of upside. And now if you hit on one of those guys in terms of their development, all of a sudden you've got additional players who are going to get into your top 30, who are going to get into your top 15 and stuff like that. So you look at stuff like, right now, Jack Slidham, who they had to big time overpay to get, where's he at in the system? He's 12th in MLB pipeline system. That's a guy you have because you are willing to underslot. They've also done things where like they get extra picks for compensatory picks and stuff like that. They're able to take both Hammond and Gamble that 1 year. So they're actually just getting a lot more high impact, high ceiling picks into their system. And hitting on those guys to some degree allows them to then end up in a place where, now they have maybe 15 to 20 legit prospects instead of 5 to 10. And that's hugely different. That's a big difference from 3 or 4 years ago when, they had some guys who were like, that's a legit prospect in, Michael Garcia and, a few others. But then it really fell off at one point, big time. And so now it looks a lot more like they have numbers and not just a few guys at the top who look like they could be major leaguers.
Just a heads up, Carson Roccaforte has officially hit 30 home runs this year.
Yes, I know. I watched it yesterday. I think was any home runs. Enough people aren't talking about this, but like a profile of somebody who has near elite defense in center field and hits 30 home runs. I can't believe he's not higher on all these rankings, frankly. But anyway, Mike, let's talk a little about when this is going to help the major league team. How far away is this system from consistently feeding the MLB team talent? Is it going to take a while? And what will it take to get to that place?
Well, I think it still has a couple seasons away from being what I would call a completely fortified system. That's one that continuously every year you have options to go down into minor league baseball, and you're helping your lineup every year, and you're helping your pitching staff every year with 1 or 2 guys on both sides. I think we're still a couple years away from that. And you need prolonged success in the draft and international signing classes and through the trades that you make at trade deadlines, things like that. Because right now, honestly, the upper minors are somewhat of a wasteland. AAA especially is not chocked full of. Now that's partially the cannibalization of the major league team that has taken every ounce of pitching that level had.
It's no bueno.
And shoot it up and spit it out, a lot of it. But it's not good at the AAA level. So we'll see, I think, a couple more years of doing those same things, having the big success in Latin America, drafting intelligently and drafting guys that you feel like fit your development scheme. 1 or 2 more years of doing that successfully. And that's when you have those guys that are now in high A, which is a chocked full of talent, have then moved up to AA or AAA and are, you're talking about a complete system top to bottom.
Yeah, I'd say 2 years is you're right about that number. That should give the first wave of Shields, Churio, Mitchell, that class that's at high A couple of years to matriculate into the high minors or maybe even to Major League Baseball. And that will really, and then you fill out the bottom 2 levels with that next wave of guys, And so if they do continue to have success in Latin America, if they do continue to have success in the draft and stuff like that. And I think they're doing the right things. Brian Bridges, I think has done really, really well. I mean, he's just good at his job. Like he's good at identifying talent. And so you see, like, I think the Zion Rose pick, it was much maligned, but he's in high A right now. If that pick does fairly well, and it looks like he's got a lot of the tools and stuff you want to see, if Jack Slydom, and I really like that pick too, like, you know, it looks like it's looking good for sort of filling out the bottom of the minors as those first wave of guys start heading to the upper minors soon. And yeah, I think in a couple of years, they will have developed something where at every level, it looks like, okay, each one of these levels is really, really, talented, and they're able to just pick and then start promoting, pick and promoting. You're going up to Major League Baseball. The next guy coming up, still a really talented AAA team. It looks like in a couple of years, they might have enough talent in this system, especially with, I know we're talking about Latin American success, and I know Angel Gomez gets a ton of props for what he's done. So there are 51 teams in the Dominican Summer League. The Royals have 2 of them. Those 2 teams finished in the top 3 in terms of record in the DSL this year. It's not just Angel Gomez. Okay. There are a lot of talented Latin American players in this class and in the previous one. And so if they keep having that kind of success in Latin America, I think you're going to see a huge wave come and really just push everything up. And then you'll have enough talent up and down the minors to where you're not saying, ooh, they're really barren in, you know, AAA, AA, high A, or whatever. It'll look like a full and productive system, I think. Royals Weekly is brought to you by All in Physical Therapy, who don't just offer the best in physical therapy in the KC Metro. They also offer the best in summer speed and conditioning programs for youth athletes who want to make big gains.
We're not talking 20 minutes on the Nordic track. We're talking go in looking like Peter Parker, come out looking like Spider-Man.
If your child is interested in getting the most out of their athleticism, check out the videos of All In Summer Speed and Conditioning Program on their Instagram feed. And of course, All In always offers the best in physical therapy for post-surgery or athletic injury patients. They offer a personalized one-on-one experience to meet your specific therapy goals.
I'd settle for one day where my hips don't feel like a coffee can full of loose gravel.
Learn more about how All In Physical Therapy can get your body back on track at allin-pt.com. That's ALLIN-pt.com. Or give these very nice people a call at 816-427-5300. That's 816-427-5300. All In Physical Therapy, your recovery goals are their number one priority. The Royals are back home for a full slate of games this week with a 4-game series against the A's, followed by a 3-gamer against the Tigers. The A's have an exciting young lineup, but they can't pitch for shit. Mike, tell us all about them.
Ooh, the A's of Las Vegas. Are they in Vegas yet?
I don't know where they're at. They're just roaming the West. Just roaming.
Playing wherever they can find a field. 49-75, the A's, 4th in the AL West. Now, game 1, we'll see Michael Wacha versus familiar name Mason Barnett. Former Royals draft pick Mason Barnett. 25-year-old righty out of Auburn. He's got a 6.16 ERA and a 1.45 whip. Those are both terrible. He's got a 4-seam fastball at 95, a slider, a sweeper, a curveball, and a changeup. Fairly low strikeout rate at 21.6 and a very high walk rate at 12 for a starter is unbelievably high. The slider is the only pitch with a positive run value, and that's just +1. So Mason Barnett, not a superstar. You can hit him. So go get him, Royals. In game 2, we do have a probable starter for the A's, just not one for the Royals. It'll be Jack Perkins going for the A's, the 26-year-old righty out of Indiana. 7.27 ERA on him, 1.52 whip. He's got a 4-seam fastball at 95 to 96, a sweeper, a changeup, a cutter, a sinker, and a slider. His expected ERA is only 4.26, so he might be a little bit better than that. The four-seam fastball has an atrocious run value of -11, according to Baseball Savant. And so he's also quite hittable. So some offensive opportunities here for the Royals in this A's series. We do not have probables for either team in game 3 or game 4. Then we will take it to the Tigers, hopefully.
Yes, at home at Kauffman Stadium this week, so they'll get a chance for a little home action. The Tigers are 60-64. That's second in the AL Central. 60-64. Not a great record. Not a great Central this year. Offensively, they've actually been playing really well since they traded a significant portion of their team at the trade deadline. And so, yeah, Mike, you and I both talked about when the Royals were up for the trade deadline. Hey, you can trade guys and you might still play well after. It happens all the time.
The Tigers
are a great example of that. The Tigers did it this year, and so are some other teams. Like, it's a ridiculous fallacy that if you trade at the trade deadline or if you sell at the trade deadline that you're definitely going to lose moving forward. Anyway, they're 60-64, second in the AL Central. Their offense is pretty good. 104 weighted runs created plus, which is 8th in Major League Baseball. They're led by, I believe he's a rookie, Kevin McGonigal, 133 weighted runs created plus. Really, really good hitter. Probably an AL Rookie of the Year favorite, I would imagine. Riley Green is also doing well at 129, but he's on the 10-day IL right now. Not sure if he's going to come off or not. Not sure what the injury even is, but we'll see that. We'll see there. Also getting a great year from Dylan Dingler, 128 weighted runs created plus from him. Just a solid lineup up and down from the Tigers. Young lineup too. So we'll see how they do. Their pitching staff, their numbers overall on the year look good, but you got to remember they traded their 2 best starters at the deadline. And so starting wise, they don't have a lot of great depth right now. They have a 3.53 ERA as a team, which is 4th in Major League Baseball. Getting a good year from Kaidir Montero, 3.22 ERA from Kaidir Montero, 3.22 ERA. Framber Valdez is having, a league average season, 4.26 ERA. Jack Flaherty's somewhere above 4.5. Not looking great for most of the rest of this rotation. They have recalled, I think, Jackson Jobe. He was a big-time pitching prospect for them, but has yet to really find it in Major League Baseball. We'll see if that does any good for them.
He started off real hot, and then he got hurt, didn't he?
He hasn't been good. He hasn't done enough to stick, and it's been about a year and a half now trying to do so. So we'll see what he might look like. I think it's one of those guys who's got big-time velocity, but his fastball's still pretty hittable. And so we'll see how they end up doing. But that's the Tigers. We'll take 3 games, or we'll have 3 games against them. Hopefully the Royals can get some wins this week. Royals Weekly is brought to you by Eric Oxer of Wish USA Realty. Word spreading about the hottest realtor in the Phoenix area. This kid's got know-how. He's got the drive. He's got thoughtful care to help you secure your dream retirement home. And let's face it, Phoenix is a dream, everybody. Sun, golf, baseball.
A dedicated army of geriatrics to impart wisdom and make you look stronger at the gym.
Eric Oxer ranked in the top 3% of agents in all of Arizona for the first quarter of 2026. Actually, he's done it for the whole year. Why? Because for Eric, it's not about him. It's about you. He's going to spend day and night grinding to find you the house of your dreams and get you the best price for it.
Go with the wrong realtor, end up with a house full of scorpions. That's fact.
That's a fact. House full of them. Find Eric Oxer of West USA Realty online at ericoxer.com. That's ERICKAUXIER.com. Or just give him a call or shoot him a text at 480-383-9745. That's 480-383-9745. Be wise. If you're ready to make the move, let Eric make the experience all about you. We're going to end this week's episode the same way we end all the friggin' episodes, with the Just About Outside segment, where we talk about something that's interesting to us outside the world of baseball, because we're not just one-dimensional people. We like lots of stuff. Does it take us a long time to think about stuff? Yes, it does. But we have lots going on. Mike, tell us what is going on in your life this last week.
Oh, so many things. Winding down my summer vacation as an educator of young minds. Got to go back to work next week. But something cool did happen. Well, lots of cool things have happened, but not that my air conditioner breaking today. That wasn't cool.
Boo! That was a bad one. That was a bad
thing. But it dawned on me like halfway through the summer, some of the weird things that you have to teach your kids. Right? I have a 4-year-old, and Mark and I are the youngest of our brothers. Okay. And we weren't around a lot of young kids when we were growing up. We have a niece and a nephew, but they kind of lived further away from us.
And they're relatively close in age. They're close enough in age that we don't really like. Yeah.
And so we never really were around like little kids when we were older. And you could think about, well, how you got to teach kids stuff, right? And so I'm kind of figuring those things out as I parent. And one of my goals this summer, because I got to spend time with my son, like just me and him, was to teach him how to go to a restaurant and not act like crazy person, right? Not act like a mutant wandering. Because honestly, we used to take him to restaurants and he would wander over to other people's tables and hang out with them and be talking
Very
to strangers.
social, this young man.
He'd be running around and stuff. And so we went to IHOP and kind of practiced a couple times throughout the summer. And then this past Friday, my wife got the day off work and we decided to go to a restaurant at night on a Friday night in a busy restaurant. And we did that and took our son, and all the stuff that we kind of worked on paid off in a sense, where he was able to order for himself. And, one of my big things is if I'm taking you out to a restaurant, I don't want you staring at an iPad or something like that. You're going to participate in the conversation with the rest of us, because that's what you do when you eat at a restaurant. And so he was able to do that, and he was able to talk to the waiter and do all these awesome things. And it just kind of strikes me like, man, everything you do for a kid is teaching. Like you have to teach them like literally everything. Kids are very observant, but that doesn't mean that they don't need guidance. So it just like kind of dawned on me and hit me like that's a success that I've had in teaching my child to do that. I'm sure there's been many, many failures when it comes to teaching him things, but it's just I'm just stopped thinking, what's the next thing I'm gonna have to teach him how to do? Like that I think is just that's just what you do. Like, that's just how you do that thing. So yeah, it's just a million of those things, but a little bit of a brag on my son that he picked that skill up over the summer and is kind of a game changer, because we've been eating out, not necessarily to avoid him being in a restaurant, but like, when you go out to eat, you don't want to also be wrangling your child constantly either. And so parents, if you are into going out to eat and doing social things like that and want to take kids, just take some intentional time and teach them how to eat at a restaurant. Don't take the iPad. That's when we went to IHOP, which we only trained at IHOP. Okay.
Kid loves IHOP.
It's a great place to train because they like smiley face pancakes. But also like I didn't take anything. I didn't take stuff for him to color, stuff for him to play with, no toys, no iPad, nothing. Just come on and talk to me. You're just going to talk. Okay. And the first time was a little bit rough, but it got better every time. And then now does great. So do that.
It dawns on me that you're also like training their attention, their ability to like stay focused on a thing, on a conversation and stuff like that. That's such a huge, valuable thing, even if it's not in a restaurant setting. Very valuable thing. So yeah, that's great that he learned that. I'm stoked to be out at a restaurant with him at some point. I have rapidly changed what I was going to talk about, because what I was going to talk about was like really big and sort of cerebral and stuff like that. And then I sat here and there's like a little mail collection. You can't see it if you're watching on YouTube, but just off screen, there's like a pile of mail usually, where if I ever get mail that I actually need to do something with, I just bring it, I set it in here and I ignore it for a long period of time. And I went through it the other day because I'm like cleaning out this desk area, podcasting area. And I found this letter from the Missouri State Secretary of Treasury or whatever. I don't know, Missouri State Treasurer. It was essentially like, hey, Marcus, we owe you money for some reason. You overpaid taxes or we miscalculated something or whatever. But in order to get it, you're going to have to like fill out this big ass form, mail it back in with 2 forms of ID, all this like huge hurdles to getting the money that the state of Missouri owes me. Right. Like, and it's like these bureaucratic hurdles that are obviously put in place so that I don't actually jump them and just let that money go, right? And this brings me to something that I really want to talk about that really bothers me. So this is low stakes. I don't need the amount of money that they're sending me. I'm never going to send it in because the time is actually less valuable than the amount of money, right? Like for me anyway. But there is a concerted effort in place in a lot of places, including I read an article about SNAP benefits and how they have, if you don't know, that's essentially food assistance for people, right? SNAP benefits. They have raised
food stamps back when Mark and I had to use them
back in the day when our family needed them. But what they've done is they've raised the amount of bureaucracy that exists in getting them. And as a result, people are falling off, right? That's the thing. If on a national level, on a macro level, what you have to do if you want people to not get food assistance, if you want to save money, if you want to do these things, is you just make it harder in terms of the bureaucracy. You got to fill out more paperwork. You got to provide more forms of identification. You got to do this. And this is the case with voting, with government programs, the food assistance, all sort of stuff. Insurance, huge. Private companies do it too.
Insurance do it constantly.
A ton. And there's a great book on this called, or on one instance of this happening called The Anguish of Displacement, that talks about how people in Appalachia about 100 or so years ago were essentially kicked off their lands and out of their homes because they started putting in all these different bureaucratic hurdles that required higher and higher levels of literacy. First, the ability to just read and write, but then the ability to understand all this legalistic language that they couldn't understand. And as a result, they ended up displacing, foreclosing, taking away houses and land from all these people, utilizing their inability to do all this paperwork and do all this legal hurdles and figure all this stuff out that they just couldn't understand, right? That's what we're seeing happen more and more now. And I just want everybody to sort of be aware of it, and we should be pushing back on it hugely. We should be pushing back on it in a major way, right? It's crazy to me that there are some people who are small government, small government, small government, and they're not screaming when this sort of shit is happening, when this sort of shit is taking place. How is a huge bureaucracy dumping all this paperwork on you not huge government? I don't get it. I don't get that concept. And so, yeah, I think we should really be grabbing onto our humanity and saying, hey, you shouldn't have to fill out 18,000 bits of paperwork when you're busy looking for a job because you need food assistance, right? That's crazy to me. We should really be taking a different sort of tact.
So as a great example of this, just ask yourself if you've ever heard a story like this from somebody you know. They went to the doctor, whatever diagnosis they had or whatever got coded wrong, and then remember what they had to do to get that changed. It was like a clerical error, and therefore you get a bill for thousands and thousands of dollars that's supposed to be covered by your insurance. You know it's covered by your insurance. Your doctor said it was covered by your insurance. Somebody made a clerical error. Go try and unwind that, and then you'll get somewhat of an idea of what that is. And our mother deals with it all the time because she's older and she has the time to deal with those things, calling doctors and insurance companies and things like that. But if you're of our age and you have to deal with those things, where's the time come to call and be on a phone with an insurance company or a government office or things like that for however long it takes? It just doesn't exist.
And to be clear, this is not the case everywhere. This is not the case all places. There are places where things work much more smoothly. For example, the tax preparation industry, right? The tax preparation industry exists in the United States. In other places, it doesn't exist. They just take your taxes. They send you a bill and that's it. It's not we have some huge tax prep industry where you need that tax prep industry because we made doing taxes so goddamn difficult and hard. You have to have somebody prepare it, right? That's the whole point, right? The levels of difficulty exist so that the tax prep industry can exist. Why? Because they lobbied for their own existence. And that's, H&R Block right here in Kansas City, Missouri is one of those reasons why, right? This is the same sort of thing I'm talking about. You should be pushing back on this anytime you get a chance to, anytime you see an opportunity, because it is costing people tons of money, costing more than you could ever imagine. So yeah, that's what I'm talking about this week. That's on my mind because I got a friggin' letter from Vivek Malik, whoever that is. And so, yeah. That's all we have for you this week. We'll be back again next week with more Royals baseball. If you'd like to hear more from us about, whatever, mostly baseball, go ahead and sign up for that Royals Weekly Substack, royalsweekly.substack.com. Until next week, be good to each other.
And go Royals.